start with Papa Ian.
Yes, G3.
One word to describe your experiences.
During the pandemic is just basking in silence from chaos.
Silence, very peaceful. What about you, Jel?
Okay. Um, Pwede bang yung word na eye-opening? Yun.
Yan.
Parang COVID-19 definitely slowed us down. It gave us time, a lot of time actually, to reflect on what really matters, diba? And I know sometimes it feels like na parang it's frustrating na wala tayong masyado magawa for our friends and families who, needed support ganyan, diba? But we must remain hopeful talaga eh. Wala tayong choice but to remain hopeful and take inspiration na knowing this too shall pass, diba?
Very true. What about you, Brina? What's your one word?
Perseverance.
Perseverance. All right. Dr. RJ.
Ako siguro acceptance kasi ang daming uncertainties ngayong pandemic and of course there are a lot of acceptance that we need to do in terms of the things that we can change, on the things that we have lost kasi ang daming ring nag-grieve ngayon eh. And yun dun sa mga bagay rin na hindi mo alam kung nandiyan pa. So ang daming mga uncertainty. So acceptance is something that we need to also learn.
My one word would be survival. I want to thank everyone for being here, and the fact that we are all here means we are champions of surviving. This pandemic has forced us to slow down and reflect, like what Angel said, on what truly matters. Great time to talk about how you started with your advocacies. Brina, I want to start with you. You have accomplished so much at such a young age. Kwentuhan mo naman kami. When did you and your family learn about your diagnosis and how has it impacted your life growing up?
I was born with Down syndrome. When I was still a tiny baby, a doctor told my parents that I will not live long because my condition was really very bad. I was in a very bad shape. But my parents refused to believe the doctor. Instead, they prayed hard and they did everything they could so that I live long. But today, I am still alive and I am already 25 years old. So you see, since I was a little child, it had been a struggle for me. Life was so difficult growing up that sometimes I thought I will already die early. I thank God for keeping me alive until today. I thank my family, my doctors, and my therapist for taking care of me. And I know that God's grace, I will live long.
Amen. By God's grace, you will live long. That's what I talk about when I say survival. You finished 3 university courses. I couldn't even survive with just one. How did you do that? That's amazing. And ano yung naging motivation mo to work hard in school and to keep on learning?
My motivation is my own desire to achieve despite my disability. I want to inspire parents and other children with disabilities, and there is hope that I can achieve for as long as I believe in myself and because I believe that God will help me.
Yes, God helps us all. Sometimes you really don't need to have to look far to find inspiration. Jel, here is a well-known champion of many causes, including women empowerment. Jel, bakit mahalaga para sa'yo ang women's rights? When did the passion start and when did it get stronger?
Thank you for that wonderful question. Parang pang Miss Universe kasi tayo, di ba? Well, Actually, GT, mas nakakaya kasi I never presented myself as the champion of different causes, diba? Nakakaya naman din sa napakaraming inspiring women and men na nauna sa atin para ipaglaban yung mga causes para magkaroon tayo ng komportabling buhay ngayon, diba? For me, sila talaga yung tunay na champion. So tayo, pinagpapatuloy lang naman natin kung ano yung nasimulan nila for us. And actually, I can't really pinpoint kung kailan talaga nagsimula yung passion, di ba? Pero ever since I was young, I've always found myself rooting for the underdogs. And I really dislike bullies. So later on, yung mga, of course, sa trabaho natin, especially yung mga nakikilala tayo, lumalapit sa atin na nakakaranas ng abuse and injustice na kailangan ng support and tulong, di ba? And alam mo, we as bilang humans and bilang social beings, di ba? I think we're wired to feel each other's pain, di ba? Especially sa trabaho natin, di ba? And para sa akin, it's a crime against humanity na wala kang gawin, pabayaan mo lang sila. So parang ganun lang, in my own little way, ginagawa ko lang naman yung part ko.
Even in the characters that you played on screen, it showed talaga that you are a strong woman, superhero, lahat, and everything. Ako, ang favorite character mo na na-play mo is Monica of The Legal Wife. Yung eksena talaga in the car na nakita mo yung anak ng asawa mo na nasa loob ng kotse at niligtas mo siya, that was very powerful for me. But for you, what is your character that you really, really admire the most that you played?
Thank you, G3. Ako, I don't know, I have always been attracted to playing roles that are empowering. Ewan ko, may pagka-bias ako, syempre, lahat tumatak sa akin yan, di ba? Pero, I think yung pinaka-recent na ginawa ko is The General's Daughter. I think, for me, kung ano yung admirable dun sa character ko na si Rian, ay nagsimula kasi siya dun sa maling side, maling lahat, ganyan. Pero nagkaroon siya ng pagkakataon na paguhin yun, di ba? So, in the end, nagawa niya kung ano yung tama. So, parang it just shows na it's never too late to do the right thing, di ba? So, may hope. I like doing characters na nagpapakita ng hope.
That's true. A character that provides hope is a character to remember. Papa Ian, you were recently lauded by many for being a proud father to Gibbs, who is a proud member of the LGBTQIA+ community. Para sa'yo, what does it mean to be a responsible and supportive parent?
For me, honestly, I don't think it has anything to do with anything. Pagdating sa when she told me about it, and yeah, it's so casual, and I don't see her as I see her as a human being, and she sees herself as that too, not just a member of a particular group or of any group, because it's like we're trying to. I love that we have these discussions because we're trying to get rid of boxes. We don't want to be put in a box, and we also don't want to put ourselves in boxes and categorize, and we don't want to put others in boxes. So I think it starts with ourselves, and I think, of course, it had served its utility in the past when we categorize things, and it's like a primordial a kind of tribalism. So we identify with groups, we group ourselves into clusters. But yeah, it's really important, especially now, to not put ourselves into certain categories, because I think we have the capacity now. We've learned so much from history. We have the capacity as human beings to expand our consciousness and to embrace that oneness, and to see with fresh eyes the beauty of the uniqueness of these people, of everyone. And yun, when we identify with a certain group, kasi sometimes we have a tendency to alienate others, and I mean, sometimes it goes as far as to it divides people. Sometimes it becomes women versus men. Sometimes it becomes straight men versus gay men. Sometimes it becomes this versus that. It's so dualistic, and I think we have the capacity now to really transcend that and progress forward. So with deeds, it was nothing. It was super casual and nothing. It's not a big issue. It's like saying I like wearing yellow socks. Okay.
Unique and completely the same. I understand what you are saying. I mean, like, all coming out stories are very important, they're very personal. I wish there will come a day when coming out stories are no longer necessary. But I want to ask you, how did Dids come out to you?
One day she was teary-eyed and she said, "Dad, can I talk to you?" I said, "Sure, sit down." And she said, "I like girls." And I said, "Yeah, me too. I like girls too, no? Girls are awesome." And she was laughing and I was laughing. And she said, "So it's okay?" I said, "Yes, just never ever be apologetic about it, not to anyone, not even to me. Because that's your... I mean, a person's capacity to love and a person's capacity to feel pain has nothing to do with their sexual preference. It's the same as has nothing to do with their skin color or where they were born. I mean, it's so irrelevant, and it's for me. Okay, parang thanks for informing me, but it's really irrelevant." So she was really happy about it, of course.
Of course, yeah. Not all parents react that way. That's very cool. Actually, very accepting and embracing. At the onset, I want to share my own coming out story. I didn't actually have a coming out story because, growing up, it was pretty obvious. I mean, like, my parents didn't have to ask me, or I didn't have to come out at the dinner table or anything like that. I was very effeminate growing up. My coming out story came later on in life because, I started to transition at 16 years old. And I was really wondering, why do I feel this way? Because, I studied an exclusive school for boys. And I was like, more than anything, I just feel so different from them. And then when I realized who I was, I started to live life comfortably as a woman. My coming out story was very different. It was when I came out as a trans woman. Because for you to feel different all your life, and suddenly you come into a mold where people accept you as a woman, then finally coming out with your truth that I am not cisgender, I am transgender, then you subject yourself to a lot of scrutiny, a lot of rejection. Then that's when I needed courage to actually come out as a trans woman. So that was officially my coming out story. I didn't come out as a gay boy. I didn't come out as a woman. I came out as a trans woman. It was a very fashionable coming out thing because it was through a magazine editorial. And I want to thank, the magazine for that. But, that was my coming out story. And it's true what Papa Ian said, having a supportive environment matters talaga. I want to ask Doc RJ, why do you think DEI conversations are important? Paano ito nakaka-apekto sa mental health at well-being natin?
Well, of course, DEI is very important, no? Kasi alam natin that stigma, discrimination, and the stereotypes that come with it all create barriers, no? And alam natin na yung DEI not only confronts our identities as individuals, but it also challenges the existing power imbalances, no? Yung mga economic and even yung other mga power imbalances na nakita natin. And of course, all of these create unnecessary, non-existent walls and division among people. And pag mas lalong lumalala yung ganoong klaseng division, it creates a sense of othering. Parang nagiging iba yung ibang tao sa sarili natin. Kaya nga, minsan yung turing natin sa mga hindi natin kaparehas ay parang hindi tao, di ba? Ganun yung nakikita natin ngayon. Merong general sense of othering where, of course, doon nagsisimula yung people tending to hurt other people, nagkakaroon ng gender-based violence. Yung mga ganong issues can be linked pag hindi ganun ka-sensitized yung mga tao to DEI. And of course, yung isa sa mga gusto pa nating i-highlight is yung mga walls na to affect our ability to seek support from other people around us. Kaya nga natutuwa ako ng mga merong parents like Ian kanina na, sobrang cool niya no doon sa pag-come out nung anak niya. And for me, parang I remember a very close friend tell me na when you come out, it's not just coming out, but it's also coming home. So yung paghahanap ulit ng bahay dun sa dating hindi mo ma-express yung sarili mo, isa yun sa mga important na component no when we talk about mental health. And sometimes yung mga social stigma, yung mga stereotypes na yan can come into us, no? Pwede natin sila ma-internalize, and that's what you call self-stigma. So yung mga negative na mga stereotypes, yung mga negative connotations dun sa specific group na yan, nagiging reality sila. They tend to become self-fulfilling prophecies. Kaya nga important talaga na ma-address natin yung stigma because it's directly linked to our mental well-being.
That's true. I like the word othering kasi that's something that we should watch out for. It's something that we should not do because diba, at the essence of every human being is, the same components. Recently, we witnessed a historic success in the Tokyo 2020 Olympics where Manulife's very own ambassador, Hidilyn Diaz, bagged the very first Olympic gold medal for the Philippines. Brina, you also represented the country by being one of only 10 Special Olympics Sergeant Shriver International Global Messengers. You are also one of only 10 United Nations UNESCO Global Champions of Inclusive Education. How did you feel when they chose you to be their spokesperson?
I was very happy when I was chosen as one of only 10 Special Olympics Sergeant Shriver International Global Messengers from all over the world. I traveled around the world to inspire people and promote courage, hope, acceptance, and dignity of people with intellectual disabilities. The United Nations chose me as one of only 10 UNESCO Global Champions for Inclusive Education. This is my advocacy. They said that I am a good example myself, having graduated college because of inclusion. I have Down syndrome, and because my IQ was very low, it's a college to my parents that I may not even finish grade school. But I persevered. I worked doubly hard. I attended regular schools, not special schools, and I graduated from college. I survived the bullies. They called me ugly and stupid. I am proud to be chosen as United Nations UNESCO Global Champion for Inclusive Education because I am the only one who is a PWD and I am the only one from Asia. The other 9 champions are doctors, educators, and government officials from other parts of the world.
It's amazing. I mean, all your achievements are so amazing to us. You are also a teacher. Have you always wanted to teach, Brina? And why?
Yes, I always wanted to be a teacher so that I can help children with intellectual disabilities like me. I am a proud assistant teacher at Tian in the Creative School of Paranaque, where I graduated from grade school. But I still dream of having my own school and of owning a grocery store someday.
Your own school. We are going to wait for that. This year's pool of Filipino Olympians have broken stereotypes as women brought home medals in stereotypically male-dominated sports that are such weightlifting and boxing, and male athletes represented the country in sports like gymnastics. It sparked an important conversation about typecasting and encouraging people that they can excel at anything regardless of their gender. Para sa inyo, what were some of the stereotypes or labels that you had to overcome or prove wrong? And I want to start this conversation by Speaking my own example, I mean, like when you are a trans woman, you only go two ways. It's either you work in a salon or you join beauty pageants. I don't have a talent in either. I have no aspirations. But like growing up a trans woman, I've always wanted to become a journalist. And today I am the first trans woman editor of any magazine in the Philippines. And I just want to say that, just because people box you in certain areas na pang beauty parlor ka lang or pang beauty pageant ka lang, it doesn't have to discourage you from occupying spaces other than those fields. Of course, we have a lot of beautiful trans women that have won international beauty pageants. And of course, we have a lot of artists working in the salons, but it shouldn't stop us from occupying spaces other than those. Para sa inyo, Ian, typically parents who want their children to follow in their footsteps career-wise, in your case, did you encourage your kids to also be in show business?
No, in my case, actually, I discouraged them by bringing them to taping, for them to see that to see beyond the magic of television, of movies, so they can see, it's pretty boring pala, tagal pala ng setup. All you do here is wait and chismisan and kulitan, and para mawala yung mystery nun. And yun, pero I have no problems if they want to, if they find it interesting. Kaya lang, I also don't want to deprive them of their own journey. Kasi syempre, pag pumasok sila sa field, kung nasan ako, I'm going to, as a parent, of course, I'm going to act like a padrino. I'm gonna call my friends and, uy, kunin mo naman yung anak ko, and I don't think it's good for them, really. That's why I'd like them to carve their own path. And just like myself, it's just my confidence also that I know I had no padrino in showbiz. I don't come from a family of showbiz. So parang when it's that way, kasi you have to you have to do your homework. You have to be nice to people. You have to do your job well. It's it's based on competence, not based on the people you know. So, and I think it's very important for any person to gain confidence from that, knowing that sila yung gumawa talaga ng sila yung responsible sa sarili nilang career. So that's one of the reasons kung bakit ayoko mag-showbiz yung mga anak ko. But if they really want to, it's okay also.
But of course, si Bibs is sort of in the performing arts, diba? She is also in music. So, you have that in common. So, I assume like at home, you also jam, diba? You share your talents to each other. Parang bonding session yan. So, kayong dalawa, pag nag-jam kayo sa bahay o kahit saan, ano yung song na pinaka-favorite niyong tugtugin sa isa't isa, kantahin sa isa't isa?
Pag nagja-jam kaming dalawa, laging, siyempre, ako yung tatay, kailangan ako mag-adjust. Pag sinabi, hindi, gawin mo yung ganito. So, ako mag-adjust. Pero yun, meron ako laging song na kinakanta sa kanya. It's called You Belong to Me.
You Belong to Me. Is this?
It's an old song.
Yeah. Can we hear parts of it?
Hindi ako ready. Wait, hindi ako ready. Okay, sige, I'm gonna take off my, so I don't hear the delay. Here's a
But tayong belong to me.
There you go.
It's a sign na tahimik siya na mesmerized din siya. The guy from Lighthouse had a very beautiful version of that. I don't remember his name, but yes, that's such a familiar song. Rachel naman, if you could have one of Darna's superpowers in real life, what would it be?
Oh my, I guess makaka-relate kung sabihin ko na yung the ability to fly, di ba? Parang lahat tayo curious kung paano yun yung, lalo na ngayon, para makaiwas ka sa traffic, tipid ka sa gas, sa pamasahe, hindi ka malilig sa trabaho, di ba? So, perfect lang yan. But, I wanna go back to sa premise ng Darna. Kasi si Darna kasi, hindi siya magiging Darna kung hindi dahil kay Narda, kung hindi dahil yung pagiging pure and selfless ng character niya. So, I think kung anyone sa atin, kahit na sino sa ordinaryong tao na kung meron kang kapasidad para maging selfless, kung ayaw mo yung minaapi, kung kaya mong i-prioritize yung kabutihan ng ibang tao, I think anyone can be a hero eh. Kahit sino sa atin pwede maging superhero in your own way.
That's true. Siyempre, apart from playing Darna, you've played very, very empowered characters. Ano yung mga natutunan mo in your life sa mga babaeng ginampanan mo throughout your career? What should, women take to heart?
For me, siguro, madami yan di ba? Pero, isa sa pinaka-importante talaga yung always be true to yourself and alamin mo kung ano yung totoo. Know what's real. Kasi it's easy to get lost sa glitz and glamour ng industriyang ito, diba? At kaya kailangan mo, you have to know and find what's real and who is real.
That's true. It's hard to find something real in an industry like ours. Living in a predominantly conservative country where many people still label and put them into boxes, what do you think Filipinos need to understand better about our communities? I want to start again with Brina. What do they need to understand better about persons or children with disabilities?
I wish that all children with intellectual disabilities like me be showered with unconditional love and that people accept us for what we are. I hope for total acceptance and inclusion in schools and in society. I wish that people accept us for what we are, respect us, and treat us with dignity. Please do not call us names like stupid, moron, idiot, mongoloid, or ugly, because it hurts our feelings. Please do not bully us. Please believe in us. We can do more and be more.
That's true. Sometimes kids can be so mean, and I think it's going to start with parents talaga, how you teach your children to accept people with differences who are different from you, who might, seem to be different from who you are. And of course, I also want to share, what society needs to better understand about the LGBTQIA plus community as a representative here. I mean, I think the bottom line is, we share the same humanity. No matter, how different you feel we are from you, no matter how you try to make us invisible, just because, we make you feel uncomfortable. It's just, the basic, knowledge of, us all being human beings. Yun na lang at the very core of every person is, a human being very similar from you. So that's just really what I want people to understand about our community, that we may, love differently, we may look differently, but in the core of all of us is really the same humanity. Ian, may mga instances ba na nag-confide sa'yo si Bits about her own encounters of discrimination?
There was a time, kasi she's very athletic and she's a good football player, soccer. And there was a time sa school that she wasn't allowed during PE to play football with the boys because the girls had a different activity, and she was like, no, it's unfair, blah 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 blah. So she was really furious about it, and I told her to do something, to talk to her teacher, or act responsibly and manage her temper. And as a father, I of course I want to make my child safe. Pero more than that, I want them to be strong. I want to prepare them because there are so many. Marami pa silang pagdadaanan. They will have to slay so many dragons in their lives, and I cannot be there to protect them all the time. So they need to be assertive. They need to stand up for themselves and learn how to manage adversity responsibly. And so I told her to deal with it on her own. I think that's an important thing to teach our children also, to be responsible, how they handle situations, that they're responsible for their thoughts, their actions, their words, their emotions. And yun nga, because marami pang may
Yes, I agree.
For example, pag pinanganak pa lang tayo, di ba, parang alam mo na at some point in their life, they would probably encounter someone who's racist against Filipinos. Pero what do we do? Do we protect them our whole lives? No, we make sure that strong yung character nila, and alam nila paano i-handle yun, and we make sure that their self-respect is not based on how others see them. They're not dependent on external validation. And yun nga, yung basis for self-respect nila, kailangan maganda yung foundation para kahit wala tayo doon, alam natin kaya nila.
That's true. We equip our children with the tools that they need, to survive in this life, because we won't always be there for them. Tama naman si Papa Ian. For Jel naman, there are often cliches about what a successful woman is. It's like, the timelines that they need to follow or the roles that they need to assume. Pero para sa'yo, what makes a woman truly successful?
For me, a woman is really successful if she's capable of choosing her own path. Yung success is having the freedom to follow your heart, na hindi mo kailangang isipin yung mga imposed gender roles na kapag babae ka, kailangan mahilig ka or hindi ka opinionated, or yung essence mo is to give birth, na dapat ikaw lahat ng gagawa ng gawaing bahay, tagalinis, tagaluto, sa bahay ka lang at taga-alaga ng bata, at kung sakaling payagan ka magtrabaho, dapat yung trabaho mo pambabae. Marami pa yan marami pa yung nilalagay tayo sa kahon na kagaya ng na-mention mo, G3 kanina, na minsan hindi natin napapansin na nilalagay pala natin yung sarili natin sa box, or yung society ganun din, di ba? Siguro pinaka-okay na gawin natin dito, huwag natin sayangan kasi we're given this one chance, this one life, this one shot, this one body. Sayang kung sasayangin natin yung opportunity para gawin yun dahil we're so concerned about kung anong opinion ng ibang tao, di ba? So, for me lang, gawin mo kung anong tingin mo makakabuti para sa katawan mo at para sa sarili mo.
And that is the definition of success talaga. Doc RJ, a very, very important issue in today's climate is mental health, diba? Parang all of us, we have gone through that throughout the pandemic. Why do you think some Filipinos is very, very uncomfortable about talking about mental health?
Well, a lot of reasons actually, no? But the first reason na very common for me is, of course, baka hindi naman naka-access yung mga tao to the right services or the right information about mental health. Because usually yung pag-uusap about mental health, lagi siyang nadidikit to concepts like depression, anxiety, suicide, di ba? Usually mga mental illnesses. But we rarely talk about mental health in a positive lens. So, kailangan natin recognize siguro that mental health is a spectrum. So, regardless where you are in the spectrum, merong interventions that should be given to you, no? Kasi pag na-attach natin yung stigma doon sa mental health condition, then usually yun yung mga reasons on why people don't talk about it. Second is, of course, yung social stigma, no? Nandun yung natatakot tayo ma-judge as weak, as unproductive, di ba? So yan yung mga common na mga misconceptions. And then siguro lastly, baka hindi ready pag-usapan yung mental health because they themselves are not okay. Diba? Ang hirap pag-usapan, ang hirap i-offer yung sarili mo sa ibang mga tao kung ikaw mismo, ubos na ubos ka na. So, kaya nga important rin that as we strive for wellness of our communities, kasama rin tayo doon sa kinakalingan natin yung sarili natin. That's why during the pandemic, topics like self-compassion are very important kasi minsan hindi realistic yung trato natin sa sarili natin as compared to how we will treat other people. So, kailangan maging kind rin tayo as we would be kind to other people.
That's actually a very great insight because we see ourselves differently. Sometimes we're more judgmental about ourselves and yes. So ano yung mga pwede nating gawin to make a positive difference in improving community challenges related to women, persons with disability, the LGBTQIA+ community, and other marginalized sectors, Doc?
Well, I think we have to recognize first that all of the struggles that we face are somehow interrelated to each other. No? So yan yung tinatawag nilang intersectionality of issues. Kasi for example, when we were starting the Youth for Mental Health Coalition, yung isa sa very strongest allies namin are coming from the LGBT community. Kasi na-recognize namin na same yung stigma, yung discrimination. At once we recognize na may mga issues kami na pwedeng pagsaluhan, I think that's something that we need to, that we can actually do something about, no? Lalo na pag specific programs and policies na yan. And when we craft, for example, our policy, say for example, the COVID-19 response, no? Tignan natin siya in the lens of the most marginalized groups, no? Ano kaya yung impact ng isang pandemic response na to sa mga kababaihan, sa mga LGBT, sa mga farmers and fisher folks, for example. So, kailangan natin tignan yon because if we want to make DEI happen, we have to be deliberate about it. It cannot be an afterthought na lang, no? So, and of course, nandun din yung pagtingin and pag-strategize how we would correct the imbalances na nasabi ko kanina when it comes to political and even economic issues. And sa tingin ko, parang for us, no, as allies, it's important for us to continue listening to them kasi I think that empathy is like a muscle, no? So it grows as exercise it. And tingin ko na for us to parang mas maging malakas yung impact natin towards these groups, important that we also learn their stories and their pain points. And sometimes those pain points cannot be communicated in the first contact. So kailangan matagal na pag-uusap, matagal na immersion yan with the different sectors that we try to actually work with.
Empathy as a muscle, so we have to exercise it. Tama naman si Doc. To our audience, if you have questions for our speakers, please feel free to ask them in our Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. We will answer them later during the Q&A session. I want to talk about purpose now. I want to know, sino naman ang inspirasyon nyo? Let's start with you, Papa Ian. Sino nag-inspire sa'yo?
Ako, my children, because of all the roles that I play, I think being a father is definitely my favorite role, and it makes my life meaningful.
What about you, Jel? Who inspires you or what inspires you?
Well, lagi naman natin sinasabi, bilang Pilipino tayo, yung pamilya talaga natin ang susi kung sino nagpapabusog ng ating mga puso, di ba? Doon tayo mahugot ang lakas ng loob. But I think ang inspirasyon natin kasi nagbabago, depende sa araw kung sino mga nakakasama natin o depende sa sitwasyon din eh. Pero ang inspirasyon kung saan tayo mahugot yung mga tao around us, yung mga na-encounter natin. Sila yung mga kakaibang experiences, yung gano'n nila ka-strong hinarap yung mga problema, di ba? And right now, magkakasama tayo ngayon, ang dami kong natututunan sa inyo at hindi naman kasi natin makikilala yung mga tao at hindi natin mahangaan kung hindi tayo makikinig sa mga stories nila kasi bawat tao may kwento at kung subukan lang natin makinig, marami tayong matututunan.
Bawat tao may kwento.
Be better, diba?
chance to be better. That's true. Doc RJ, who inspires you?
Well, for me, walang specific na individual. Kasi parang in the past few years, parang may mga times that I got disappointed dahil dun sa mga taong hinangaan ko. So, tingin ko parang we just take kung ano yung tingin nating inspiring about them. Pero ako personally, yung hinahangaan ko talaga ngayon are people who are working together para ma-achieve yung goals nila. For example, yung mga sinet-up na community pantries o kaya yung mga learning hubs na sineset up ng mga iba't ibang youth organizations. So I take a lot of inspiration dun sa kung paano nagtatrabaho yung iba't ibang mga grupo together.
That's true. Initiative, takes a great part in that. What about you, Brina? Who inspires you?
My inspiration is my whole family. They support me and love me unconditionally. My daddy is also a PWD like me because he has a rare and incurable disease. We inspire each other. He is my best friend number one.
He is your best friend. Your daddy is your best friend. How do families and schools play a major role in normalizing DEI, Brina?
Family is very important because they will defend you against bullies. And family will help you with the problems. Family will accept you for who you are.
That's true. Your family is the first to accept you. Tama naman yan. Papa Ian, anong pwede natin gawin to make a big impact in the long run? Like ensuring parents raise their children more confident about themselves and support people who are considered different.
Well, I think it's really important to start with ourselves because we can be open to other perspectives if we ourselves are not open to it. And the sense of responsibility para maipasa natin sa kanila, we have to be also sa sarili natin responsible when it comes to not putting people in boxes, na being open to different ideas, to discussions, and maging magandang example tayo sa mga anak natin, and hopefully ganun din sila para happy sila.
Jel, paano naman natin na-encourage ang mga kababaihan to stand up more for themselves?
I firmly believe that education plays an important role. Dapat siguro habang maliit pa lang, ang mga magulang sa bahay tututuro na hanggang sa yung mga guro sa paaralan naman, kailangan ituro na sa kabataan ng kanilang karapatan, pati yung mga kakayahan nila bilang isang individual. Kailangan din natin magbasa, mag-research, and then i-share natin kung anong kaalaman natin sa ibang tao. Actually, yung pandemic, makikita talaga natin na tumaas yung bilang ng domestic violence against women and children. Nag-average tayo ng 8 kababaihan ang nakakaranas ng sexual abuse. Ngayon, nasa gitna tayo ng community quarantine. At of course, alam natin na marami pa din yung underreported kasi marami pa sa atin ang hindi pa alam kung saan kukuha ng lakas ng loob para tumayo at to stand up for themselves. So, tayo, bilang may kakayahan naman tayo, siguro I think let's allow ourselves to be a refuge sa mga lumalapit sa atin para humingi ng tulong. Let's create a safe place for everyone. Kung saan mang sektor, dapat well-represented tayong lahat.
Of course, that includes men, diba? For men naman, how can they stand up for equality and defy unfair expectations brought about by the macho culture, Jel?
Kuya Ian, you wanna discuss?
I come from a family of strong women, from my lolas to my mother to my wife to my daughter. Yun nga, kung merong oppressed sa amin pamilya, yung kami mga lalaki yun. So
Thank you, Kuya Ian. Well, sa akin kasi parang wala namang mawawala kung maging mas sympathetic tayo, mas sensitive tayo sa feelings ng ibang tao, di ba? At I don't think, wala yan sa gender eh. It's a matter of pagiging makatao natin, di ba? Kung pakiramdam natin, we made someone uncomfortable by our words or actions, then adjust tayo, di ba? Kailangan natin matutong mag-respeto, learn to respect. Kapag merong siguro napapansin natin na babastos, then call out the perpetrator. Diba? Yung mga ganung bagay lang. Yung mga munting pagmamalasakit natin, hindi natin alam. Malaki na pala yung itutulong natin.
For the trans community naman, for LGBTQI A+ members, I'd like to encourage everyone, just to, like what I said earlier, just to take up their own space. I mean, your talents, your skill level, your competencies don't have to, correspond to the things that, are assigned to you or whatever. You know yourself better than anyone else, and whatever it is, your competence level is, kung ano yung talents mo, then that's where you should shine, and that's where you should exert yourself. Guys, before we proceed to the Q&A, we'd like to first acknowledge the presence of our friends from the media. I want to acknowledge our friends from the Philippine Star, Manila Times, Daily Tribune, U.PH, Metro.Style, When in Manila, Click the City, Wonder Mag, Corner Magazine, Boy Racket, Lifestyle Portal, Lionheart TV, and Trend Hotspot. All right. Now, let's bring back all our guests on our screen. Are you ready to answer the questions in our Q&A box? Are you ready, guys? Okay, so we want to start with Jel. Many young girls today are on social media, and the thrill of being a celebrity can be very tempting. Anong advice mo sa kanila? How can they grow up an empowered woman? Kasi diba syempre ngayon, like if you're popular on social media, they equate it to worth. They equate it to importance, diba? So what about you, Jel? How can you grow up an empowered woman, and what is the advice that you can give to all of these young ladies?
Lalo na ngayon, lahat online, di ba? Tayo online din ngayon. So, I think it's flattering to see yung mga likes, yung mga shares, yung mga hearts na makikita natin sa lahat ng mga ina-upload natin online, di ba? But don't depend your worth on those kasi online yun eh, hindi siya reality. Don't lose sight of the reality around you. At hindi nyo kailangan magpa-pressure para gumawa ng mga contents that are against your principles. Yun yung pinaka-importante talaga. Reality check lagi. And wala kayong obligasyon para i-please yung ibang tao.
This is a question for Ian. Anong advice mo so I can be a lot closer to my teenage kids that don't see me as a cool dad?
It's hard to give specific advice to someone. I'll just share how I am with my kids. I learn from my.
Okay, I want to go to Brina now. What do you do to recharge yourself naman? What are your favorite hobbies and activities?
Hello? Can you hear me, G3?
Yes, I can hear you now, but Brina is going to talk first. I think you're on mute, Brina.
Dance and exercise every day to be physically fit. I do research puzzles every day because it helps me learn more words and know their meanings.
Okay, I want to go back to Papa Ian. What can you do to become a cool dad?
As I was saying, I encourage my kids to know not just the good side, but also learn from my strengths and my weaknesses. And we all have flaws, so I want them to see those flaws. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. Okay, let me jump right back into Brina to ask her what her favorite song to dance to is.
I love to dance to hip hop. I love to dance to hip hop dance music.
Hip-hop dance. So, pareho tayo. Gusto ko lang hip-hop. I want to ask Doc RJ, in terms of mental health, how do you know if you need to ask for professional help already? Kasi ako may mga times talagang nagigising ako, sobra akong lungkot. Tapos parang sometimes, like, umilat yung depression ko, umabot ng 3 weeks ha. So I don't know, parang kailangan ko na ba mag-dormicum? Parang ganyan. So I don't know, kasi di ba parang I think all of us, we battle with bouts of sadness and depression. And at church, they call it languishing because of the time that we've stayed indoors and, been confined to the spaces that are, within the four walls of our homes. So kailangan malaman natin na parang kailangan mo nang humingi ng professional help. Ano yung mga symptoms nun, Doc?
Well, first of all, I'd like to emphasize on early detection, lalo na kung mga mental health concerns yan. And you don't necessarily have to have a mental health diagnosis for you to seek professional help. No? Kasi yun yung ayaw natin na parang pag severe na, doon pa lang natin siya ititreat. Kasi usually, yung pag ganun, mas complicated sila itreat and usually mas costly rin sila. So, for me, kung nandun ka sa point na pag-iisipan mo na parang, okay, meron na ba akong mental health disorder or is it a normal feeling? Yung guide na ginagamit ko are what we call the 5 Ds, no? So the first D is what we call dysfunction. So kung ikaw, for example, you're working, naapektuhan na yung work mo, tapos kung estudyante ka, naapektuhan na yung performance mo sa school, then probably it's a sign that you might need to seek additional support already. Yung second na D is what we call deviance, no? Pag may mga ginagawa ka ng kakaiba or very odd behaviors na usually hindi mo sila ginagawa. So for example, dati you're very friendly to other people pero in just one day biglang nag-shift ka to you isolating yourself, ayaw mong makihalubilo sa ibang mga tao. So that can be considered as deviance. And of course yung third is distress, no? So pag kunwari yung nasabi ko kanina na dysfunction, hindi ka na nakaka-perform sa school or sa work mo, tapos ikaw parang numb ka, hindi mo maramdaman na merong negative impact yun sa'yo, then probably there's a disconnect between your external environment and your internal emotional state. So pag merong disconnect, then probably baka kailangan mo na ng professional support. And then a fourth is, since we're talking about mental health, minsan yung topic ng suicide cannot be shied away from, no? So pag meron na mga thoughts of self-harm or harming other people, then probably it's a sign that you need to seek professional help already. And then yung pinaka-last siguro is yung duration, no? Kanina na-mention mo na tumatagal siya ng 3 weeks, di ba? Yung sadness. So, pag ganun, kailangan natin i-consider because usually, pag mas matagal yung emotions natin, tapos constant siya and you can't explain it, then usually it's a sign that you need to go to a professional na. So, yung 5 Ds na yun are just the basic. Pero syempre, pag pumunta ka sa isang mental health professional, you would undergo several psychological and even psychological interview para ma-certain talaga nila what your diagnosis is.
Dysfunction, deviance, distress. What's the fourth D? You didn't mention the fourth.
Danger.
And the last one is
Duration. Yeah.
duration. Okay, so do you need to have all those 5 Ds to call a professional or just one or 2 or 3 of all of kahit isa lang doon you need to call na a professional?
Well, usually mga 2 or more yung recommendation. Pero it's not a hard and fast rule kasi gusto natin na if you feel heaviness tapos hindi mo siya ma-explain, then it's always best to go early to a psychiatrist or a psychologist kung anong available.
Okay, so we go to another D, dynamics. Parang somebody wants to know, Papa Ian, what your family dynamics are. Do you think nakatulong kayo yung decision niya to come out to you because of, how you relate to your family? What makes family a safe space to come out to? Kasi for any child, kasi takot na takot din ako sa magiging reaction ng mga magulang ko. Tatanggapin ba nila ako? Mamahalin ba nila ako? If I wear a dress the next day, ano yung magiging reaction nila? What in your family dynamics made it very easy for kids to come out to you?
We spend so much time together and sila yung barkada ko. We're really, really close. And yun, yeah, they see not just the good side but the bad side. They know me more than anyone. So ganun din, I think it's really important that they feel a sense of security, that they're loved unconditionally, and that they're not being judged based on how they on our own criteria or our own expectations. That they're free to think for themselves, and that they're free to be who they want to be. And I think that plays a big role in them being comfortable to come out.
Exactly. Parenting for you. The question here for me, is it important for a queer person to define or find out where in the LGBTQIA plus spectrum they fall under, and how can I ask for someone's pronouns respectfully? Like I said earlier, syempre, like I grew up in the 90s, and in the 90s, the terms were not clearly defined yet. So, growing up in Ateneo, I was like in a boys' school. So, feeling ko talaga, I was gay. Kasi wala pa namang clear defined terms noon. Wala pang soji noon. So I didn't know I was trans. So I think if you are a person growing up and you don't know who you are, I think it's okay to take your time. I mean, the spectrum now is broader more than ever. Di ba kaya nga may plus na sabi dati, LGBT, dati kasi LGBT lang yan. Tapos naging LGBTQIA. Tapos ngayon may plus. Diba? So the spectrum is so broad. Diba? All of us fall into that spectrum. So I think when you question who you are, and when you start to realize who you are, it's important to take your time so you know where you belong in the spectrum. There's really no pressure in allowing yourself to learn who you really are. So that's really the advice that I would give is just to take your time. You talk to people who have probably gone through the same path as you. It's very important that you talk to your parents also for guidance and stuff like that. And with regards to pronouns, my pronouns are she, her, hers. Generally speaking, what people express themselves at, what they look as, that's generally the pronouns that they want to be used. Diba? So if they express themselves as female, then use the pronoun she, her, hers. If they express themselves as male, then he, him, his. But it's always polite and safe to ask first. In the church that I go to, when the pastor prays for me, he asks me, what pronouns are you comfortable with? And then I answer. Sometimes, mas maganda pa yung tinatanong kesa yung na-offend ka na pala, hindi mo alam, hindi mo masabi-sabi dun sa tao. So I think, generally speaking, the gender expression is, that is the pronouns that you should use, but it's always safe to ask first. I'm going to ask Jel again. This is a question from our audience. What do you think is the importance of using your platform to drive important causes and advocacy? Because you have a very, very large following. Diba? Parang you are one of the most followed and influential Filipinas on social media. So how do you use that platform for a responsible way to, spread your message of hope to everyone?
Social media plays a very crucial role kasi in shaping the minds of the younger generations. So, me, I try my best to use my platform, in sharing what I think is helpful and beneficial, diba? For example, ang Twitter account ko kasi it's 143 Red Angel. Akala ng iba 143 kasi I love you, Red. Hindi yun. 143 siya kasi 143 kasi yung hotline ng Red Cross. And naisipan namin gawin yon para in case of emergency, mas madaling matandaan ng tao. Kumbaga may recall so they can easily ask for help, diba? And also the fastest way kasi to reach out to people and to raise awareness about our causes, our advocacies is online talaga.
So ngayon ko lang nalaman yung 143 is hot. Saying that, diba, I want to thank also the Red Cross for the good work that they've been doing in the pandemic. I've gone to the Red Cross with you at some point, and they're doing an excellent job. This is another question for me. It says, how important is representation in the workplace or in media? I mean, like growing up, wala naman akong nakikitang people like me, diba? If ever may nakita akong people like me, they're always portrayed in the teleseries and they're in the movies with shawls, nasa parlor, pinagtatunan, sidekick, binabatukan. I have yet to watch a very accurate representation of trans women on screen or in media. That's why, I try to be very visible in the spaces that I occupy. Para if ever there is a young person that wants to be a journalist, that wants to be a writer, that wants to work behind the screen, then they probably have somebody to look up to. Kasi ako, wala talaga. As in like, wala. Ang idol ko, mga babae, mga lalaki, wala akong nakikitang katulad ko. So, I think really now is the time to, blaze a trail. I don't mind that I didn't have, representation growing up. Yung wala akong napapanood na katulad ko. But it means, it just gives us, more time to blaze a trail. It gives us an opportunity to blaze a trail. I want to ask Doc RJ, when experiencing emotional distress, how do you clear your heads?
Well, sa start siguro, you have to decrease the stimuli, no? Kasi minsan, pag nagsabay-sabay yung mga stressors natin, it can become overwhelming for some people. So, na-overwhelm niya yung capacity to cope with several stressors. So, important talaga that, i-segregate natin yung mga thoughts natin. But at the same time, we also need to accept the idea that we cannot completely clear our headspace, right? Kasi, yun yung normal physiology ng katawan natin, yung mind natin, yung brain natin, mag-iisip at mag-iisip siya. But it's just a matter of managing those thoughts and compartmentalizing them, depende doon sa readiness mo to act on them. So, siguro, aside from accepting and of course decreasing the level of stimuli, you might want to look for a way for you to release those emotions, no? So, it can be through art, it can be through word, no? Baka mahilig kayo mag-journal, or you can also release it through physical exercise, no? Ako, personally, yun yung isa sa mga ginagawa ko rin. And then, of course, we have to also accept that we can't just embrace the positive emotions and leave out the negative ones. Kasi normal rin for us as human beings to have positive and negative emotions. And minsan, pag nandun ka sa situation na sobrang negative, sobrang andaming mga challenges, it's normal for you to feel bad, no? It's okay for you to feel frustrated, to be angry. So, the more kasi that we shelf our emotions, the more likely silang tumatagal. So, important talaga that we acknowledge our emotions kasi babalik at babalik sa yung emotions as long as you don't put a lot of energy dun sa pag-accept sa kanya.
Accept your emotions, embrace your feelings. I think tama naman yun. For everyone, what makes you proud of being an ally? Kasi ako, like a lot of people say, oh, I'm an LGBT ally, I'm an ally. What an ally means to me really, and this is my definition of being an ally, it doesn't mean, that you have gay friends or you have gay relatives, children, parents, whatever, that makes you an ally. For me, that's not an ally. An ally for me is somebody who will not stop fighting until their rights are equal to yours. Diba? Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin ally ka dahil marami kang kaibigan gay or marami kang may anak kang lesbian or meron kang mga relatives na trans. Being an ally for me, the true definition is really when you do not stop until the rights of others are equal to yours. That is an ally for me. What, guys, makes you proud of being an ally? And I want to start with Brina. An ally to, people that are in the marginalized communities. What word defines you as an ally?
That I have quite a number of achievements despite my disability, but I really worked very hard.
That you pray hard. Tama. I mean, like, we really, really rely on our abilities, to be able to relate to people. What about you, Jel? What makes you proud of being an ally?
To be an ally of a community driven by love is an honor. If you feel one with them in their struggles, hindi ibig sabihin tao pa ako, di ba? Makaramdam ako, may malasakit ako sa kapwa natin. Kasi wala akong pakiramdam sa nangyayari sa paligid natin, di ba? Kung meron taong may pinagdadaanan na kahit papaano na pag-aangko sa maliit kong paraan by making them feel na hindi sila nag-iisa sa journey na yun. Para sa akin, that's priceless.
That's true. What about you, Papa Ian? What makes you proud of being not just a father, but an ally to the community?
I think the fact that I'm always willing to be supportive and to fight oppression against women, children, the elderly. It doesn't matter. Oppression happens to everyone, and not only that, but to encourage people.
Okay.
Start with myself and hopefully.
Start with yourself. Okay, so we want to move on to Doc RJ. What makes you proud of becoming an ally, of being an ally?
Well, if you would listen to the Greeks, meron silang sinasabing different types of love, and what they say the highest form of love is what we call agape, because it extends beyond you, no, beyond your immediate circle. So sa tingin ko, yun yung nakaka-proud to be an ally, to be part of something na hindi ka naman ikaw yung directly na magbe-benefit. So, yun, ang ganda lang ng feeling na ganun yung pananaw natin about advocacies, because at the end of the day parang yung sector pa rin naman yung nagsusulong nung kanyang rights and of course yung liberation niya, no, as a person. So I think it's important for us to recognize that as allies.
Okay, so I think we still have a lot of great questions from our audience, but unfortunately that's all the time we have for this evening. I want to check muna baka there's one question for each that we want to ask. So 2 questions from the audience. First, I want to start with Angel. What's your advice to young girls who are afraid to speak up because takot silang mabansagan na too strong for a girl? Did you hear the question, Jel?
Too strong for a girl. I think, pag naririnig ko yung word na yun, natatawa talaga ako. Kasi ang dami kong kilalang mga babae, even sa mga sports na dominated ng mga kalalakihan na talo nila yung mga boys, diba? So parang that's to 1920s pa. Parang nasa 19 na tayo. Parang nasa year 2020, magto-22 na tayo, guys. So parang napaka-backward ka rin talaga. But ako, be proud. Huwag kayong parang wag niyong i-consider yung worth niyo depende sa opinion ng ibang tao, diba? And isipin na lang yung girl power. And siguro pinakasimpleng bagay kung paano ko itong ma-explain na lahat naman tayo, nagagawa lahat yan pantay-pantay. But we girls, nagagawa natin yun pero naka-wear pa tayo ng 5 inches na heels, diba? So, mas magaling pa. Di naman, di ba sa parang mas kaya lang natin yung challenge sa panganganak sa ganyan. Mas kaya natin ang pagtitiis kumpara sa boys, diba? Mas malakas sa atin ang mga kalalakihan, aminado naman ako doon. Pero yung pagiging matiisin natin at matyaga, I think mag-a-agree naman mga boys natin dito pag sinabi natin yan. So, syaga lang.
Natatawa si Papa Ian. I guess on that note, we're going to ask for our panelists for their final words. I want to start with Brina. What are your final words in making people understand, our communities, how, they can make every day better for themselves and the community? What are your final words, Brina?
People with intellectual disabilities like me are also human beings.
And I want to ask, yes, go ahead, Brina. Do you have something to add?
People with intellectual disabilities like me are also human beings. And we should be treated with dignity. Please believe in us because we can do more and be more if only they give us the chance.
We can do more and be more given the chance. What a beautiful final message. What about you, Doc RJ? Are any final words for people who are watching us tonight?
Well, siguro, I'll relate it to mental health, no? Kasi ngayong pandemic, sobrang na-challenge talaga yung mental health natin as individuals and as a group. So, dalawa, no? Magpahinga at magpahinga, no? So, yung magpahinga, meaning rest, no? So, it's actually taking care of ourselves because, yun nga, hindi talaga natin maalagaan yung ibang mga tao kung tayo mismo ay hindi okay. And at the same time, we also need to realize na yung pag-iis ng burden ng ibang mga tao is also our responsibility in a way. So kumbaga we have to extend patience, extra kindness, lalo na ngayon na yung mga taong nakakahalubilo natin, iba't iba yung bigat na dinadala nila. Posibleng iba-ibang levels ito, pero suffice it to say siguro lahat tayo nasa process of grieving kasi may mga nawala talaga sa atin, no, because of the pandemic. So ayun, magpahinga at magpahinga ng ibang mga tao.
Magpahinga at magpahinga. Thank you, Doc RJ. I want to ask Papa Ian, to your millions of fans, followers, and admirers, what are your final words for tonight as an ally, as a proud father of people, for somebody in the community? What are your final words for us?
Respect, love, compassion, and we're all here as temporary visitors. So it's really, really important that we coexist in the most harmonious way possible. And it starts with ourselves.
Yourself, compassion really for her final words for tonight, the people that are listening and watching us, what can you say to them?
Well, siguro, paghalu-haluin ko lang lahat din ng sinabi ng mga fellow advocates ko here dito and mabubuo natin yung love your neighbor as yourself. Para hindi natin itrato ang sarili natin at ang kapwa natin na may pagmamahal at respeto. Huwag natin kakalimutan yon and always do what's right and everything's gonna be alright. Last ko na yun. Okay.
Do what is right. I think, in that basic sense, talagang yun lang naman talagang kailangan natin sundin. I think for my final word tonight is really, I learned so much tonight. I learned that, empathy is a muscle. And I think when you learn, sabi nga nila, ito yung pinagkaiba natin sa lahat ng ibang animals. That we have, empathy. That is what makes us different. That is what, sets us apart. So I think that when you put yourself in the positions of others, whether it be, they are disabled or in the LGBTQI community or whatever marginalized sector there is in the community, if you put yourself in that position, then you begin to understand, how they need to be treated, how they need to feel. And I guess as a final word, just practice empathy. Everyone is there is a purpose to why all of us are going through the same thing at the exact same time. The whole world is going through the same thing. And I think there is a reason for us to, go through all of these things together at the same time. And, it just brings us to a place of empathy towards others. There have been a lot of movements throughout the past months, throughout the past year. If you're really just fighting for equality, just really